So I'd actually grown up in Goa, and I decided one day that I'd seen this very cool, cute-looking island in Goa, and I decided I was actually going to buy it, and I kind of negotiated and almost did everything with it. And then thankfully, a few days before, actually signing the deal, I thought about it and realized, this is again one of those assets which is possibly going to fascinate me for 6 months and maybe fascinate my friends for a longer period of time. I would get bored with it in some time. And I realized helping others was something which really got me excited. But I didn't want to help two or three or four people. I said, okay, if you're reasonably smart, figure out a way to help a million. And one of my friends did mention crowdfunding and said, why don't you check it out? And I went online, read about it for half an hour, and I said, okay, this is definitely going to work. So what I did about 8 years back is I literally sold everything I own. So I don't own anything more in life. And I moved to Bangalore and started this crowdfunding platform called Fuel a Dream. And what we do through Fuel a Dream is we mainly work with a lot of nonprofits. We make a lot of social impact. We also work with people who have great creative ideas and want to, build electrical cycles or smart wallets or cool jackets or build music albums. So you can fund both creative ideas and social impact, on Fuel a Dream.
Yeah, and talking about projects, my personal favorite would be the e-bike one. What would your favorites be? What were the ones which you found most interesting or
Yeah, that's
impactful?
actually a lot of them are really, really fascinating. My top of mind, if you ask me, e-bike was a very interesting one for us simply because it was one of the first product-led campaigns that we ever did. Electric bikes were in their infancy. We had this wonderful entrepreneur from Coimbatore by the name of Manikandan who came to us with this idea. Uh, we knew a little bit about crowdfunding, even though we were a platform. It was a first for us. He trusted us and said, okay, let's make this work. And it was very fascinating that, we were actually able to help him and his team, raise in those days a massive amount of 65 lakhs in terms of pre-orders for a bike. And at least 60% of those people who ordered the bike hadn't even seen the product. They just read about it and said, okay, let's do this. And it was a huge amount of money to raise for a product 8 years back. There were not too many bikes of that kind. So that was a great project. We also did something very fascinating called the Tiffy template, which was a very cool product for the visually impaired. And this helped the visually impaired people recognize an Indian currency note in 4 seconds.
Oh,
And the reason is that 7 out of 10 visually impaired people, when they go to a shop and they give them money, they give a 50 rupee note, and the shopkeeper could always tell them that you've given me a 20 rupee note. And there's no way to prove that I gave you a 50. So there was this little cute device. All you had to do is wrap your note around it, measure it. You could do it visually if you're visually impaired. Just measure the length and breadth. And this was done by an entrepreneur in Bangalore called Paul. And we actually raised, money for 500,000 of those. And that was a very fascinating one. We built a lot of canals for villagers in drought-affected areas of Maharashtra and crowdfunded it. So there were a lot of very, very fascinating ones we did. And possibly the most impactful was a campaign we did for a person called Mallesham in Hyderabad. He built this amazing machine for weavers who made this very interesting sari called the Pochampalli sari. And it was a machine which took a job which was manual, which was done by women. They spent 8 hours, or 5 hours, sorry, trying to make a particular design. And it was literally shoulder breaking. And he automated the whole process because his mom went through the agony of doing it. And he didn't get too much of support from the government, and the weavers needed that machine. So we did crowdfunding to give the machine to weavers. And the Times of India thought it was a great idea, and they wrote about it. And 3 weeks after that, he ended up winning the Padma Shri.
full circle back to Times of India.
Yeah. And uh, a few months after that, his story became so fascinating that Netflix actually made a movie around it.
Wow. And what's the name of that for the
It's
viewer?
called Malaysia.
Malaysia.
That's the name of the person. And, to look at the journey from, an entrepreneur doing crowdfunding, getting into the newspapers, winning a Padma Shri, and then becoming Netflix, all that in a span of 1.5 years was absolutely, very, very nice. And it was all led by the crowd. So I guess the crowd want to make a difference. They want to help. And Indians are actually a very, very generous lot. We don't talk about it. So a lot of times the perception is, hey, I don't think we're that generous. But we give almost 42,000 crores to NGOs. Companies give almost another 15,000 crores through CSR. And we give another 45,000 to temples and churches and mosques and gurudwaras. So that's almost 1 lakh of crores Indians give every year.
And that's proportional to the average income, that's just
huge.
Unheard
so
of.
we are a giving people, but we don't talk about it. And that's part of a culture. We say left hand shouldn't know what the right hand is doing. We do all those things. So I guess we just like to be modest.
And as a proportion of the total amount of money you've raised, if you want to say how much that is, you can. How much of that would be via schools? Because I thought that was an ingenious idea, right? You go to a school, tell the kids about it, they get something out of it, they can put it on their college application or whatever, and they get personal fulfillment, and they can reach a wider audience base to raise the amount of money that's required for a particular cause.
So our school program was, again, this is the beauty about building companies. We never visualized the school program ever when we started the company.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about building companies. So it's not like we were smart enough to see it. I was at a conference and I had this wonderful lady sitting next to me who heard about what we were doing. And she happened to be the principal of a school in Bangalore. Her name was Manju ma'am. And, she was the principal of this school called DPS Bangalore North. And she said, Ranga, you should do this with my students. It would really transform their lives. And why don't you do a school program? So I said, okay, let's try it out. So we actually tried it out. And they were the first school possibly in the world to do crowdfunding. And that became a very, very big program where today we work with about 21,000 students.
What?
Students have raised close to almost 50 crores on our platform. And students learn empathy. They learn very, very critical life skills, right from communication, storytelling. We even teach, like we taught you all how to make a great phone call. Seems like a simple thing, but it's a very, very critical skill. So students learn a lot. They learn to give back to, society. Oh, yes, it also happens to be good, on your college app.